Saddle up your horses.
Pitter patter, let's get at her. It is another episode of the Manely Broncos podcast. We are excited, in the brand new season of the Broncos season, NFL season, to always, get the chance to do these shows with you. And you are probably recognizing a familiar face here tonight. Brandon is over there on vacation, but the other third of the Manely Broncos podcast is here. None other than Matty Mulls is in the house, or the Manely Broncos house. Yeah, he's in the Manely Broncos house once again. So, Matty, it's good to have you back. It's good to have you back in the saddle, if you will. So how is it going with you, man? How is life, first off?
Like Meatloaf says, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. So you guys have been rocking 2 out of 3 for so long now. Glad I could get back in here today. Dude, life is life, man. Like, we just had a kid a month ago. Yesterday was his 1 month date. We've got a kid who's 3, a kid who's 5. I'm a full-time college student. I'm taking statistics and analytics too right now. So like the Denver Broncos, I personally know what it's like to feel my ass get beat on a weekly basis. The struggle is super real, and I'm still active duty military. Just hit my 20-year mark 2 weeks ago. So like a lot of life happening, but I'm very excited to be back, even though I'm not excited for the result that we see on the field.
I mean, nonetheless, we are a family, and so it's always good to, bring you back, welcome you back. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, ladies and gentlemen, over there on the MHRT Network page. Also, like the show, share the show, have your friends tell their friends about the Manely Broncos podcast. Make sure you also follow the Twitter handle over there on X. It would be the at Manely Broncos, and you can also follow Matty at Matty Mulls Pod. You can also follow myself at Cam Parker PO, and obviously, as we said, we have 2/3 of the Manely Broncos cast, and that is because Brandon is out doing a trip right now, so he is MIA. We actually don't know where he is. Kid you not. But again, make sure you have your friends tell your friends about the Manely Broncos podcast. What's up, Clayton? Absolutely, make sure you listen to Clayton. Smash that like button and share, as we said earlier. Let's kind of just dive into this a little bit. I think we should still preface this that it's week 2. There are. And it's a young team from the quarterback perspective, like there will be growing pains. I mean, I think that, there was a lot of comments made about, quarterback classes, not just Nick's, but just, about the age of the class and, that possibly him coming in and, maybe looking a little bit better than the others. But I think we should still preface it knowing the fact that this is week 2. There's going to be growing pains, and you just hope it continues, that growth continues week in and week out, that there are progress and progression being made. But Matty, not exactly an ideal start for all the parties involved.
So what came first, the chicken or the egg? What's the problem, the rookie quarterback or the neutered offense that he's running? Like, it's very difficult to look at how these games are being called and be optimistic about our immediate future. Like, we thought that Bo Nix, and I'm the proud owner of 2 Bo Nix jerseys, and I'm not really a huge jersey guy, but I got the craze and all that.
He's still a believer, though.
I still believe.
That's right.
But does his coach believe? We really do not see him given the reins and the opportunity to just ball. He's spending 80% of the play clock just getting the play out in the huddle. And it's not because he's incapable. That was one of the things they tested him on. They gave him the playbook late at night, knowing that he was going to have an early morning meeting with them, and crushed it. He was
it was a pro day, I think, too. It was like
he was able to digest it and regurgitate it back to them fine. It's not his lack of understanding the playbook. It certainly isn't that. It's damn, these things are so complicated. Can we shorten these play calls? Can we give, like, okay, we have Cortland Sutton, who we just gave a little bit of extra money to be back on the roster.
Almost like two restructures, if you will, in 1 year.
We brought in Reynolds. So, like, we brought in a guy from Detroit and gave him a decent chunk of money to be our wide receiver too. And he's a veteran. Okay. We've paid a ton of money to our offensive line. We have guys who are veterans who we've made investments in. The rookie quarterback is the limit. And yet we're not putting him in a position to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We've got to be better on first down. Everybody is involved in that. The running game sucks. It's atrocious. You could say what you want about the offensive line. You could say what you want about running backs, not making things happen, not name the bad man himself, right? Averaging 16 yards a carry, maybe give him a few more touches. But like, it's bad. And so we're losing on first down. We're doing some check down or something super vanilla on second down, third and long, and then we're off the field. We were 2 for 12 on third down efficiency. Is that because of the rookie quarterback? Potentially a little bit, right? But is that also a product of the system that he's in? Absolutely. He's not set up for success to get into a manageable third down and be able to move the sticks and sustain drives. So coach has too much control, and it isn't letting guys just go see and react and ball and play and have fun and be loose and just get after it.
Yeah, and I think that the more you kind of peel back the layer a little bit, that was a really nice summary of it. And I think that for when you even peel it back just a little bit more, we'll dive a little bit more into Bo in just a little bit. But I feel like, me personally, if you look at the team as a whole and as it's currently constructed, I get the feeling that the more you look into this game, the more you look at the actual game itself through the first 2 weeks, a lot of some of the big weaknesses for this roster kind of crept up a little bit. You know what I mean? Like specifically that wide receiver room, the playmaker room. And I think that that's probably where it's still fitting to start. And obviously, for anybody that has been listening overall to the MHRT network, I'm sure that we've been talking about that ad nauseum for really any Broncos show that's on the network. But it still remains to be true, Matty. I mean, they have problems galore right now. I mean, I think that it's very obvious Marvin Mims does need those snaps, and, Sean Payton, made that known. You got to at least call it for what it is. He made it known even before the season started, and even trading Jerry Jeudy, that he was going to have a much larger role. That's not been the case so far. So you hate to certainly speculate, but it does make you wonder, is there something, and I know it's week 2, but it does make you wonder what's going on between, behind the scenes. Is he not getting it? Is there something, going on between both he and Peyton that they're just, it's a clash right now and they're not mixing. And so therefore, it's not resulting in, performance on the field. And as a result, Troy Franklin, by just 3 snaps, has more than him. So that is something that is really unfortunate right now. And I hate to play the create a rumor card, but it kind of does make you wonder if that's where things are certainly going with the wide receiver room. And then obviously the other layer of that wide receiver room, Matty, is there has been so much conversation from last offseason to maybe even the offseason before that. And that was, they really do lack a dominant wide receiver one, the Brandon Marshalls, the Demaryius Thomases, those wide receivers who can absolutely collect 10 to 15 receptions a game, knowing the fact that they're going to produce at a very high level. They don't have that. Based on what we're seeing, they really don't have that, at least from what we can say within the first 2 weeks. Again, they don't have it. And they did this particular offense, and specifically with the rookie quarterback, certainly would be so beneficial to have that kind of weapon right now on the offensive side of the ball.
I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with that statement. I can't find the stat right now, but we have been middle of the pack or back end in yards after catch for several seasons now. You got to have guys that can take the work off of the quarterback, having to complete everything through air yards to move the ball down the field. Like, we're completing passes and guys are going down immediately, except for some of the fight I saw from little Jordan Humphrey after the catch. He looked a little bit like Brandon Marshall at times, getting out in space. Reynolds looked a little bit like that too. Like, we got to start helping this quarterback out. You got to help your guy out.
Yeah.
Is he missing some passes? Yes. Did he miss one down the left side to Mims that you got to have? Absolutely. But guys aren't making plays.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have that guy that we're like, 3rd and 6, we're going here. It's everybody in the building knows it's happening, and you're still not going to be able to stop it. Right. We do not have that dominant wide receiver 1, and we're not scheming things for the other guys to be successful too. Catching the ball in stride, in space, and being able to make things happen. It's just so frustrating. I mean, Russell Wilson's offenses looked exotic compared to what we're seeing.
Well, because Cortland Sutton may not have been wide receiver 1, but to your point, there were so many cases where it was like, screw it, Sutton's down there somewhere. You know what I mean? And that was basically the entirety of their offense. And they need a wide receiver like that. And I think that while that may not necessarily be Sutton in a hole, maybe that can be him, that you get him involved a little bit more, because he has been quiet. He has been very, very quiet. And, and to the wide receivers point, they do have to be better. They have to shout out to Patrick Chiotti over there at the Let's Talk Broncos .com, and then the Let's Talk Broncos podcast, and for the content that they do over there. He took a screen grab, I believe it was, of that red zone play where Bo threw the interception. You typically don't glean too much off of just a screen grab, but the reason why he did that was the ball was snapped, and you got a chance to see Josh Reynolds and Cortland Sutton be very, very late coming off the ball. The release was just really terrible, and that can't happen. You are 2 veteran wide receivers, specifically Cortland, and granted, Reynolds did get better as the game was going on, but those are types of things that cannot happen. And to Matty's point, you need to be able to do these things that helps out your young quarterback, and it's just not happening. And it is not happening, at least right now for the first couple weeks. You do have to give a shout out to Matty, as Matty said, with little Jordan Humphrey. While it may seem like he may not be a typical yak monster, little Jordan, contrary to the other Jordan over there put on the orange, he deserves praise for how he was at least playing, at least for the 2 weeks, because you could at least confidently say, right, I love you, Jordan, Mr. Put on the orange over there, and Broncos Ave. You could at least compliment him and say, like, he may be, of all the wide receivers, one of the ones who's really putting in the most effort, within that wide receiver room. And effort is a very strong word, certainly, Matty, but he is certainly one of the few that is really putting in that effort.
I mean, making the most of his opportunity. We saw him have some spurts before. I'm desperate for playmaking.
Yeah.
I'm not beholden to the number 14 having to make every play,
right,
because he's not making any play. And he's gotten He's been held, he's been interfered with and all of that, but you know what? A lot of great receivers are, and they still make plays. Got to have it. Especially after the offseason we had with him and a lot of the dissension apparently, and he felt disrespected and whatever. Bruh, this is your chance to go make you money on the next deal, and this isn't how that happens.
Well, and if you want to be a wide receiver one and be paid like a wide receiver one, to quote the actor who played in Rudy, act like it. You know what I mean? Like, and obviously that particular scene was, talking about a captain, and act like it. Obviously, we know that the coach was a bit off base here because, the coach wasn't necessarily the captain on the field, the player was. But you get where I'm going, like, act like it. Act like you're a captain. You know what I mean? Like, and so I think that, for where we're at and for where we're at as a team, they still lack in that playmaking area. And you can even continue that theme into other positions, Matty. I mean, like, we are through 2 weeks, and again, you don't want to get too overreactionary with some things, because like I said, it is week 2. But the Greg Dulcich experiment is beginning to be very, very thin right now. That was of all the performances, that might be darn near the top about one of the more disappointing performances that just can't happen. He looks lost out there, and not just lost, but he's not catching balls. He's dropping like gimme passes. You know what I mean? Like, he's dropping gimme passes, and those are things that cannot happen with, especially when you're looking at it from the standpoint of a rookie quarterback. So I'm hoping, that those are things that, can be correctable from week in to week out.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, well, one, talking about crappy tight end play. Yeah, I'm back to the well here. That deserved the bourbon to get open. Drops, not knowing where to be. It's like he almost doesn't know the playbook. It's like he's not getting reps. And if he is getting reps in practice, how do we not see this, right? Like, I don't know what the explanation is. Like, why is he on the field? Why is he on the field? It feels like they're putting him out there for the sake of putting him out there. It's like, he's fetch. He's literally fetch. Like, stop trying to make fetch happen. It's never going to happen.
Like, I mean, they're at least trying to get him, out there. I mean, for one, we'll just start with the very obvious because he's been injured a whole lot. Him out there is the victory of in itself, but you also have to make the most out of your opportunity, and he's not doing that. He's making it worse by not reeling in those passes, and when you're hurting your team more than helping your team, at some point you got to cut your losses. Now, it's week 2. We should still preface that. We should still preface it. It's week 2. You hope that things progress, over time and week by week, but it's just a bit frustrating. It's a bit frustrating.
Super, super frustrating. Before we get to that, I'll finish my comment about receivers. So I found it. Yards after catch per completion, because I'm not going total yards after catch. It's completion. I feel like that's a better metric. We are the 6th worst team in the NFL. Surprisingly, the 49ers are the worst team with 3.3 yards after catch per completion. We're at 4.2. To keep that in perspective, so the Chiefs are at 8.3. The Buccaneers, who are facing this week, are at 7.7. So what does that mean? That means that Baker Mayfield, he could complete a pass for 3 yards down the field, and they're moving the sticks. That's what that means on average. Like, we're not getting that. We're not getting that. We are amongst the worst and being able to get our playmakers in space, what limited playmakers I guess we do have, it's a problem. And Peyton's supposed to be really good at this. He's supposed to be scheming people left and right to be open. You know, if you put a cloth over my face and knocked me out and told me, you know, hey, this is 8 years ago, and I got to see the statistics that happened during the week, I'd be like, oh man, the Saints are killing it, obviously, because Peyton knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Where that is, let me see that.
Right. You know, and I think that JC, again, thank you for the comment. We'll get to it
For sure. For sure, we'll get to it.
We'll get to it here in a little bit. I think that, you know, that's where it's going to be. That's where I think that it starts with. Let's just talk about the elephant in the room there, because you talked about it there. He does need to do it a little bit differently. He absolutely needs to simplify the offense. Now, we should clarify this just a little bit. We are not saying change the offense or change the entire structure of the way things are being handled, in a sense that different play calls, different formations, you know, different personnel groups. We're not saying that at all. What we are saying and what we are talking about is that he needs to, those, you know, I think I said this on the 5280 podcast. The length of a Sean Payton play call is like the naughty and nice list for Santa. It is exceptionally long, you know. And I think that, you know, and I even said this too, you know, coming from someone, you know, who has a learning difference, it would be very beneficial to have something that is a bit more shortened that I can understand coming into the huddle, where that play may still, you know, resonate and still get the job done, to where it resonates with not just me, but also resonates with the players and every other corresponding group in the huddle. I think it would mean more. It would matter more that we have things on a much more congruent level, where we're actually able to hear the play and, you know, speak it. But I think that over time, here's the thing, is like, I think that over time, those long play calls that Peyton does have instructed should not necessarily go away. You know what I mean? Like, once things get comfortable and once things start week by week, things start, you know, working a little bit better, that's when you start inch by inch working some of that stuff in just a little bit more. But I think right now, Matty, he has to simplify this to where it's like, you know, okay, these are the plays we're going to go with. Repeat it back to me, and then we'll go from there.
Why are we trying to run when we can't even crawl?
Right.
There's no shame in having the plays on your wrist and say run 19 or whatever.
Right. Or
he spits that out, so he doesn't have to listen for a 9-second play call and then regurgitate out 9 seconds. He could say, you know, hey, 19. Maybe we could go tempo.
Yeah.
Can we start installing some things to go tempo? Maybe get the defense on its heels. You know, someone on Twitter, I don't remember where I saw it, said, like, good point of this is the fact that we're getting so late in our play clock that when it hits 1 or it's around there, like, the defense knows, like, to tee off. They're not off balance or anything. Like, our tackles are getting killed.
Yeah.
We are losing the edge consistently here. Like,
yeah.
What are we doing? We are not doing anything offensively to make things easier on our quarterback, who's going to be making his 3rd start. What are we doing here? We are hamstringing this kid. You know, it's like putting Forrest Gump in an Olympic race, but like making sure those leg braces are a little extra tight. You know, like those things aren't going to come off. We're going to restrict these legs, right? His magic shoes are going to stay on.
Yeah.
The magic shoes ain't working right now.
And you hate to delve down a road that I know Sean Payton doesn't want to have that conversation again. But these long play calls, Matty, that's another thing I think I mentioned on 5280 yesterday. But these long play calls might bring some credence to the idea of maybe a reason why Russell Wilson was having a hard time getting plays out last year, in terms of one of the reasons why maybe they were clashing. it's just one of the things that like could give credence to that idea. You know what I mean? So it's just like it's something to kind of have in the back of your mind. Like the more things kind of progress, and obviously he's a rookie quarterback, meaning Bo Nix, and Russ is a veteran, but it does make you wonder. Like it does make you wonder. If you're seeing like 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe 9 seconds on the play clock, and you're finally getting up to the ball to get ready to snap it. So, yeah, I think that, it's something that absolutely needs to get fixed. And speaking of scheming up things a little bit better, however, Matty, do some things just a little bit more. I like how you brought in the up tempo, the no huddle, maybe, with Bo Nix. I think that let's do some things that he is a bit comfortable with. Like let's run a little bit of some more RPOs. Let's run a little bit of some short screen game, just a little bit, to get him a little bit more comfortable. You know what I mean? Maybe take some shots here and there. I mean, because like the more shots you take, the more deep shots you take, where there really haven't been many chances going forward of taking a deep shot, are the chances where he's going to be missing some of those deep shots because you didn't take advantage of it early in the game. You know what I mean? So I think with the way things were certainly shaping out, you've got to be able to help him out a little bit better. And yeah, I think he certainly leads the team in rushing, but like let's also help him out a little bit with his legs. Like let's do some quarterback draws. Or quarterback powers. Let's do some some read option. Let's do some RPOs. Like let's do some things that that he could be a little bit comfortable with. Now, I think that one area where this absolutely has to improve, and this is a nice lead in to the other position group, Matty, that is as devastating and disappointing as the wide receiver room, and that is the running back room. But in terms of schematically making things better for Bo Nix, enough with the under center stuff. Specifically, if the moment he's getting under center is when they're going to be running the football. That might lead some credence to the idea, maybe why how bad the running has been, at least through the first 2 weeks. But it's very obvious coming from at least I want to say with the Oregon offense, it was majority in shotgun for the most part, right? So like let's do some things that are a little bit more he's accustomed to within that offense. Do a little bit more shotgun, have him be under center, but maybe less frequently, have things to where you are not running when you're under center, or you're actually doing some play action when he's under center. Like let's free things up just a little bit. You know what I mean?
We aren't doing enough to make the defense wrong. We're basically playing against the defense. Like this is a game of poker, and we're playing with our cards up. They know it's coming. They know when it's coming, and they know how it's coming. And the one play we hit for an explosive was something creative. We lined up Wildcat. And then we were able to get the ball into Nix's hands coming from the wide receiver position. And he was able to hit Reynolds down the field. Now, that's the same drive that we threw the interception on that we can't have. But, like, that was creative. We did something to put the defense on its heels. We're not doing anything to put the defense on its heels. Oh, he's under center. Okay, that's a run. Bet. We're not doing enough play action. We're not doing enough quick pass game out of being under center. We're not, like... Why don't we line up tight, flip the play, and then put somebody out, like instead of going, I formation with a tight end in, split them out. See if that doesn't move the backer out. See if that doesn't rotate the safeties over. See if maybe we can't go on the backside and get a quick slant. Hey, Cortland Sutton, go earn your money. Be a big receiver, right? Something so that maybe they're not teeing off every time, getting the edge, shooting a gap, beating their guys. Like we gotta, just like we're not helping Bo Nix out, we're certainly not helping our offensive line out by giving off cues for what the play is. Yeah. So, like all around, it's just been bad. It's just been bad.
And to talk about the performance needs to get better. You know what I mean? Like the performance the performance does need to get better from this, from everything that is, um, you know, from the offensive line, the running backs, it does. Like, the committing to a running game, but also having it be less predictable is going to help out your young quarterback. You know what I mean? And I think that if you're able, and I think the other important thing that is of note here is you have to do it with players that you're going to have success with, and Javonte Williams does not look like Javonte Williams. He looks like Javonte Williams from like 2 games after the Packer game till now. You know what I mean? Like he looks like a completely different back since his injury, since the ACL injury. He looks slow. He looks sluggish. The vision is just not there. The fight, again, I hate to throw out the word effort through week 2 again, but the effort and everything we've been accustomed to seeing with Javonte just doesn't seem there. The famous Baltimore Ravens run. I think I saw someone on X, Twitter, post something the other day talking about, I can't wait to tell my kids about what Javonte Williams was like, pre-ACL injury. Like that's
the run against the Cowboys.
Yeah, like I mean, like that is in essence like where things just feel like with Javonte. Like he's just a completely different running back. And
he went from angry runs to mildly ill-tempered runs.
Yeah, and and I hate to even mention this because he has been such a fan favorite for the fans, and he's an exciting player. But Julian McLaughlin is as much of a disappointment as Javonte right now. And it seems like they may want to try and get him in space, but you've got to be able to do something with it. You can maybe try your best to catch the ball out of the backfield. And maybe to a certain degree, it kind of leads into the idea that, the moment Jaleel gets the ball, the moment a defender's in his face, I think that there's some credence to that. But like, let's be a little bit creative, maybe with how we want to use Jaleel in space or something. Like, I think that, the halfback screens, it's like we're watching a Pat Shurmur, offense to a certain degree, like, through for like a couple weeks. The halfback screen game is actually non-existent. I almost got out of my chair at Empower Stadium when I saw that halfback screen to Javonte, in the Pittsburgh Steelers game. Like, let's do some things that are going to not just help out the running backs in space, but let's do some things that kind of stuff that's going to be helping out your running backs and get them in space, especially guys like Jaleel and Javonte, and some of those other backs. And maybe, just maybe, they actually have a guy on the roster that's not Tyler Beatty that maybe they can use in some ways like that. A guy by the name of Blake Watson. Mr.
Elementary.
Yeah.
Dear Watson. How about number 10? Can we start calling some design runs for him?
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier too. Like
our leading rusher, maybe get him involved. 4 carries for 25 yards. Like, maybe make him a bit of a weapon. Force a spy. Make a safety have to make a different decision. Maybe make a nickel have to hold serve or try to come off the edge or something. Allow the defense to make a mistake and be wrong, and then you've got a numbers game elsewhere. But they're not respecting that.
No.
It's Bo Nix right now has the ability to throw the ball for sure, but his X factor is his wheels and his willingness to take a little contact. You can't put the bubble wrap on this kid. You gotta allow him to be the aggressor some. I think if he's allowed to get involved, if we get him running more, he's able to see some first downs happen. Maybe his confidence goes up. We saw some of these clips from Tim and from, I think, Chase also made some comments. Like early in the game, he had happy feet and he wasn't established. His platform
he did get better.
Wrong.
He did get better. Yeah.
But it's it's nerves. Why don't we just get him settled in and make a few plays? as a basketball player, if you're in a shooting slump, the best thing you could do is go get fouled and get to the line and see a ball go in the hoop.
Right.
Doesn't matter. It's only worth 1 point. Okay, the ball can go through the hoop. I can have success. All right. Kind of like dust
Yeah.
the rust off and get back after it. Like, we are not, I've said it 47 times, we're not putting him in position to have success. I really hope that things open up and things are different against Tampa, because that team is really freaking solid. And I'm not just saying that because Baker Mayfield's their freaking quarterback and the Rams got him off waivers. And if they didn't have Stafford, like, he would still be there. And it just happened to go to the Bucs. Like, I'm not bitter at all that we were invested in other people and Baker didn't have a chance to come here. But Baker's balling. Say what you want about him. You may not like him, but that's what peak male performance looks like right now.
So let's talk about some of the positives of the group. Enough about kind of like railing on, some of the stuff. Let's lead off with the positive first, and that is Bo. Let's at least lead off with the positive, and that is in all the games that they've played, in the last 2 weeks, you have seen signs of improvement. You've seen him have the less happy feet. You've seen it slow down for him just a little bit more to where he's processing a little bit better. His back's been up against the wall, but that's also been one of the moments that he's been able to play at his best. You don't want that hardly at all. You want to make sure that, you want to make sure he's playing that way with the lead, and you want to make sure he's playing that way when they don't have the lead, that he's steady Eddie, but I think that you can tell he's progressing, Matty, you can see the processing is starting to kind of get better. And I think that the other thing too, that is stuff you don't see in a box score, stuff you don't see in games, the leadership mentality and the way that he's been carrying himself has stayed the same for, ever since he's been into that building as a quarterback of the Broncos. People may think it was a snarky response. I loved that snarky response.
I just threw it to the other team.
Yeah. And, so, I mean, we don't need to dive into, why and how it actually happened for you to throw the football to the other team. It's just like, no, I just threw the football to the other team. What more do you want me to say? And leave that conversation for you and Sean Payton. You know what I mean? And I think that that's the sign of
him and Cortland Sutton.
Or him and Davis Webb, or, so I mean, leave that as a private conversation. So I thought that was a perfect response. And you know what, to be fair, one of the things that he's actually had to work on has been staring down wide receivers. He did it again today. He did it again in his presser. He denied the idea that he is staring down wide receivers, but because again, you don't want to publicly say this out loud, but it's just how do you feel about staring down, Cortland Sutton? He goes, no. It was just a very short answer. And it's just those types of conversations, as much as they may try to get it out of you, those private conversations and conversations like that are for you and Cortland, you and Sean Payton. Let's work on those things. The leadership mentality from what we are seeing with Bo has stayed the same ever since he's been drafted by Denver.
And it's a status thing too, right? And not haughty, look at me, I'm so great. It's you're not going to leverage me and put me beneath you in this situation. You're interviewing me. I'm here to give answers, but I'm not here to be berated, and I'm not here to earn your approval.
Right.
And I think that's great, because the only people's approval that matter are the ones in the locker room. As long as he doesn't lose them, he's good. Now, I am a little concerned about the fact that our defense has been balling out of control. And it's the same old song and dance. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
It's oh, great, here we go again. But as long as people on that team believe, Patrick Surtain PS2 came to his defense right after game 1. And said basically people were tripping. Bo actually played great. It's just,
he unfortunately deleted the tweet, and I wish he didn't delete it. Yeah.
I mean, maybe something happened and he's look, I don't want to get in the business of having to defend my guys on Twitter all the time.
Yeah.
I'm not going to set this precedent. I'm just going to like delete this. And
But it was certainly great. It was certainly great to see.
But yeah, that's dope. It was great to see. I think Nix has, obviously he has a lot of room for improvement, and I think he will.
Mm-hmm.
The Bo Nix that we're going to see in week 18 is going to be markedly different than the one we're seeing in week 3. I just hope that some of these results change, and it doesn't even matter about wins.
Yeah.
I'm documented in circles saying I think we're a 5 to 6 win team. Maybe that was a little ambitious. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was right on the bunny. There are a lot of teams that don't look as good as they were advertised to start this season. There are some teams that have been overproducing and maybe they regress a bit later on. But Bo has been fine. There have been good signs. There have been bad signs. It's a mixed bag. He's a rookie quarterback. There have been mixed bag results with Caleb Williams, who was drafted number 1, and Jaden Daniels, who was drafted number 2.
No passing touchdowns for either of them.
So, we're
to be frank, actually, I'll be Cameron. I won't be Frank. But I will say this: like, he played. If we're gonna kind of go about, like, he played better against Pittsburgh the more the game went on than Caleb Williams did against the Houston Texans, and Pittsburgh's defense is as good, if not a little bit on or a little bit below Houston as far as that. But they're both great defenses, and it's just like, so if you're really kind of looking at things just a little bit better, Pittsburgh's defense is no joke. And so I think that, let's take some credence in the fact that, maybe if we're looking at it from the week by week perspective, which it should be. And I think that for this season, I think I've even mentioned this to Matty too, and to everybody in the chat, that it's like, I'm definitely more of the week by week progression by, let's see some progression, throughout this. And then also that I think it's easy to, circle back to before the season. It's easy to give record predictions because, like, we have to do it. We're a podcast. We have to do the record predictions and stuff like that. At the end of the day, this whole season has been about Sean Payton and his relationship with Bo Nix, and Bo Nix being the guy really kind of at the end of the day. And if he can show that growth consistently from week to week to week, if they could be 1-17 by the end of the season, but if Bo Nix proves that he is their franchise guy going forward, and everybody and their mother sees that, that's really the most important result here. Because then at that moment, the Broncos will have the first thing that they have ever had since Manning left that building, and that is a franchise quarterback that they can build on. I mean, yeah, we can talk about number 1 overall draft picks and everything, but they were still first-round picks. Trevor Lawrence had a terrible rookie year. He was right on par with Peyton Manning's rookie season with what he had at Indianapolis. Anthony Richardson had an okay rookie year, but he didn't even finish the year.
3 games.
He played like 3 games. Kyler Murray was a bit shaky to start out. Lamar Jackson, I don't think he even played in his first year. Josh Allen was very shaky, and everybody knows, and Matty knows too. It's like Broncos country knows about the whole Josh Allen thing, is that if he would have been a Denver Bronco, he would never have been a Denver Bronco by like week 3 or season 3, because he would have been kicked out of town. So let's kind of take it week by week. Let's see that whole progress play out with Bo, and hopefully can continue to, show that growth.
Well, the best thing for us would be to finish with like 3 or 4 wins and be very optimistic about Bo's future and have guys that we're very excited about seeing, because there's some dogs, there's some studs at the top of that draft order at the wide receiver position. There are 3 playmakers that I'm sure we'll talk about multiple times throughout the season. that
We might
would
actually talk about it here in just a little bit here.
that'll
maybe.
inject a lot of life. But to get to the other side of the wide receivers, talk corners for a minute.
Yeah, let's go to the
let's get to JC's question. Bring it back up. I don't know about leash tightening. First of all, it's good to even see him out on the field. It's good for him to be healthy and to play. I'm not calling him the Great White Hope yet, but young kid, he's going to make some mistakes, especially when he's the one getting all the attention. It does seem to me, though, like he is utilized or he's attacked in high leverage situations, and it's been a mixed bag about what those results are. Unfortunately, one of those plays, he made a play and the guy behind him decided to lead with his helmet and stuff, and it was rough and, penalty and extend the drive and what have you. But mixed bag, but I think he's ever bit the part.
Yeah.
These days, talking about cornerback too, though, like a lot of teams now, maybe if we don't start getting these yards per carry under wraps soon, maybe it won't change. But a lot of teams use 11 personnel often in the NFL, which means you have to have multiple cornerbacks, and Riley is certainly going to be one of our top 3 corners pretty much all season, regardless.
And I think that, for me, I don't know what my expectations were for him going into this season as far as him to, be right away. So I will say he's kind of surpassed it a little bit. Like specifically the one that I'm sure is going to be circulated all throughout social media, and that would be the throw from Geno Smith to Tyler Lockett, on that fourth down. What do you want him to do with that? I mean, like, on a play like that, what do you
longer?
Right. You want him to have Mr. Fantastic arms? I mean, like,
it's tough. It's a great route. Lockett's an incredible route runner,
it was an unbelievable ball, for that. Yeah. So,
yeah.
And I think that for what he's been asked to do through week 2, you could not have asked for a better outcome. I mean, like, the penalties, you certainly want to clean those things up. I feel like, there were probably some ticky-tack calls, to be fair, on Riley.
To be fair.
On Riley. But I think that all in all, he's really held in nicely. And I think that once he continues to have more games under his belt, at that moment, you're going to be talking about 3 cornerbacks that the Broncos have. That is a good problem to have with Jaquan McMillan, Riley Moss, and PS2. I mean, like, that's going to be a really good problem to have as the season progresses. And we haven't even talked about, who knows what's going to happen near the end of the season and then playing some of the younger guys, with guys like Chris Abrams-Durain entering the mix, who had a very strong preseason. And so I think that, I will say, I think that one of the surprises, and, this is a nice little segue into the other position groups in the defense in general. I think one of the surprises, and one of the big surprises in a good way, has been the loss of that man right there. Doesn't actually seem like it was that bad of a deal right now. Brandon Jones looks pretty good through 2 weeks. PJ Locke looks great through 2 weeks. JL Skinner on special teams is an animal on special teams. I mean, so they certainly are looking to part with their 3 safeties right now. So from that cornerback room to the safety room to, for the first couple weeks, it seems like they are really playing with a brand of physicality that Jim Leonhard wants. And I think that that's something that Bronco fans should be encouraged about.
I mean, the back end looks pretty good. I think a lot of that has to do with how effective the front end's been.
What's up, Bronco MBA?
We may not have a Batman at edge, but boy, Zach Allen is trying. He is everywhere. He is a menace. He's just maybe a step slow going against, some of these quarterbacks, right? Justin Fields was just a little too fast and was able to get the edge on some of those. But like Cooper and Ellis and Benito and Allen, those guys have been getting in and being effective. Our defense hasn't been the problem.
No.
There were a couple of lapses against the Seahawks, right? The long touchdown run by Geno and then obviously Walker got into us a bit. But
what I was just going to say, that kind of leads it to a bit of the weakness of the group, which, as much as we, because the pass rush is great, right, Matty? Like the defensive line is great, the secondary is great. The weakest link continues to kind of be that linebacker,
the new middle,
the new look inside linebacker room of Singleton and Barton, and I love Singleton. He's been a tackling machine, but it certainly seems like he's kind of shown to be a little bit of a liability in coverage.
I mean, right, he's 7 solo tackles. How many of those have been in space on a pass play? Now, granted, it's good to make that tackle because, you miss your tackle, who knows what happens. But, man, like, it's been so long since we've had a dominant player at that position, too.
Who's been the best players? Who's been the best player post Brandon Marshall and Danny Trevathan? Can't really name them, can you?
Not really. No, like after Super Bowl 50, that position group attrited, and it's been kind of ho hum. Man, that's a tough question. The thing is for us also is like we're decent on the D line against the run, but we aren't getting an awful lot of tackles for loss though. And that's the problem. All of our tackles for loss, Jonah Ellis had 2, Benito had 1, Allen had 1. That's it. Where's the interior defensive line push and being able to eat up a running back in the backfield? Where's that disturbance at, shortly after handoff? We're not, like we talk about explosive plays on offense. Like these tackles for loss, even if they're not sacks, they're explosive plays on defense. And we're not getting those. Now we're solid. It's not necessarily bend but don't break, but it's not a hyper aggressive nature of where we're forcing the issue all the time. It's kind of like, we're going to be here. We're going to minimize mistakes. We're going to try to just play solid in the confines of a base. I will say Joseph's been fairly aggressive on 3rd down, and it's paid off some. But I brought this up in the chat in Predominantly Orange here. Like, we're paying a lot of money to PS2, and as great as he is, he's being rendered ineffective in a sense because they're just going away from him. So if they're going away from 2, we need other guys. We need one of the other 10 to step up and make a play. Get a turnover, get a big tackle for loss.
Or just be a step quicker.
Get them off of schedule. It's like we're not doing enough there and getting short fields too. I will say to go to one more level. Our special teams has been pretty damn good though.
Yeah.
We're not getting Mims free on returns, but man, our punt coverage, we've gotten the ball dead inside the 3 multiple times now within the first 2 weeks. That just wasn't happening in years past.
Man, so Jaron asks that if Sean Payton loses 5 in a row, does he bench Nix and start Zach?
You want me to take it?
Feel free.
I mean, I think context matters, right? This isn't just a wins and losses thing. I know he said the next time I lose 6 or only win 6 games in a season will be the first, talking about our 5.5 over under win total.
Right.
But we're staring that in the face, and that's okay. This is a growth year. This is Bo Nix's rookie year. as much of a prospect as I think Zach Wilson is,
Or was, or depending on
and like how good he looked in the preseason, I wouldn't be shocked if he's traded actually to one of these teams that all of a sudden there are a lot of teams in the NFL that are potentially needing a quarterback. There may be a lot of teams looking and saying, you know what, our backup situation's not great. Maybe we need to shore that up before it becomes a problem. I think Wilson did a lot to help that.
Yeah.
I don't know that we're going to showcase him. Like, there's no saving the season for us if we move on from Bo Nix. He is our bet. All of our bets are on him this year.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too to factor in is Jarrett Stidham is still here. So I mean, like,
and he's QB2, right?
So I mean, like, I think that you know, it's one where I mean, I could see the, you know, some teams, maybe the Giants, right? Maybe even the Panthers, depending on that circus of a team, you know, and how things have been, you know, circulating there. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if some teams are calling for Zach, or maybe even calling for Jarrett. I've been kind of clamoring that, you know, the Broncos should probably do themselves a favor and keep 3 as much as they can this year. You know, I think that for, you know, for everything that we see, you know, with Zach, I think it's just been nothing but a growth year for him, you know, and I think it's important that he doesn't play, you know, because like to use the very ironic comparison, he finds himself in the role that Sam Darnold does with the San Francisco 49ers, and that is just take it as a learning year and, you know, see if you can be able to, you know, go get a starting job, you know, like a 1-year contract kind of deal, you know, for a team. And look what Sam Darnold's doing. He's kind of running away right now with, you know, the job that he's doing, you know, and the other thing too with Peyton, to piggyback off of what Matty is saying, is Sean does have a bit of an ego to him. So to where he's not going to bench Nix, specifically in the standpoint of, like, he's made it very known, like even the moment he drafted him, how he absolutely loved him, even from the moment of the pro day. You know, I mean, like he even said that to, was it Kay Adams, and even, you know, and everything, like he absolutely loves him. And so then the other question that that Jaron mentions is, do they get rid of Sean if it's like last year? Well, they were 8-9 last year. And if they actually go 8-9 last year or this year, based on certainly how they're starting, I will actually take that as progress, not regress. And that is something, that I think, Matty, that you know, you and I've said is like, you know, their admittedly, I will say their floor was 7-10 for me, and their ceiling is 10-7. So that kind of falls right in line with it. So like, you know, if you put that and you're seeing the growth from Bo, that's really ultimately what matters. And, you know, so I mean, I don't know how you feel about that. And also too, I think that the ownership, it seems like they're very committed to Sean. It seems like they're very committed to Sean, and they really want to make it work. And, you know, they love their team. They're going to make, and they're also, as it clearly was shown with signing Quinn Miners and PS2 to those extensions, they're going to be playing the players that matter and bringing in players that matter so that they can be a better football team.
I agree. Bronco and VA, Peyton and Nix are married. Like their successes are intertwined here. Something to consider that Peyton may be able to use as a card for leverage is the fact that Russell Wilson was not his guy.
He wasn't.
Russell Wilson was not extended because Sean Payton went and stood on a table and said, extend him and give him his money.
That was George.
We're playing behind the 8 ball for this season and next with the dead money that we're going to pay for Russell Wilson no longer playing for the Broncos. That's just a reality. We have to take our medicine. That's the only way to move on. This season was always going to be affected by that. Next season is going to be affected by that. And then after that, we're going to be able to have some fun. You just hope that in a third year, in Bo Nix's third year, he's like able to turn it on, and we know he's the guy. And that's when we go in, balls to the wall for that year and the next year, kind of like what the Niners did with Purdy, and just build the stoutest team around a guy on that rookie scale deal. Like, that's the game plan. That's the window. We're not playing for 24. We're not playing for 25. The plan for us is 2026, 27 season.
And that's why the CJ Stroud stuff is a bit of an anomaly, because the moment he hit in his rookie year, it just kind of expedited what Matty was talking about with what the Niners did with Purdy to what the Houston Texans were doing with Stroud. Like, the moment that happened was the moment they really, got it flowing and really started building a more, stout team and everything. So, as far as a cut, PS2 didn't get take a cut. It was like they added on to like the extra years that he had. So it's in essence like a 6-year deal. Like, I think it goes through 2029. So it's basically an added on extension, if that makes any sense. Like, but as far as the defense is concerned, though, Matty, it is definitely the once again, like the other positives of the the first couple weeks. I think what does give us a bit concern is the PTSD of everything we've seen in in the last 8 years, and that is just the defense is its biggest pro versus the offense, and that's. And you hope that we can see some progress there from the offense to at least get a glimmer of hope. You know what I mean? And so we'll see. And like we said, we are entering week 2. It's
entering week 3.
We ended week 2, entering week 3. That's right. We play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They are a very tough football team, and I think that one of the keys for me in this game, before we wrap things up and go to another segment here, is I think that the secondary is one of the key things for me from the Broncos side of things, specifically looking at that Tampa Bay Buccaneers wide receiver room with guys like Mike Evans, who I'm sure PS2 will be all over, at least I think. Shadowing.
Hopefully not too all over.
That's right. And then you got Riley Moss, Jaquan McMillan, Levi Wallace, who we didn't talk about him, but he's kind of looked pretty solid also so far through 2 weeks. But they got who's the McMillan kid from Washington, Jalen McMillan or something like that. And obviously they got my boy Trey Palmer, who I will say it for the fact that this is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers week. If Trey Palmer wakes up pissed off, expect him to have a really big day. I'll just say that.
So I agree. The wide receiver position is probably the strongest position on the Bucs. Them putting Godwin in the slot has been a godsend for that offense.
He's a free agent after this year, by the way.
He's making some money right now. I mean, he's automatic. He's a big target. He runs great routes. He gets yards after the catch. He's elite in the red zone. He's a good blocker, a willing blocker. The dude's just a lot. And then, oh, by the way, that Mike Evans guy on the outside is pretty damn good. Still leading the league in separation, by the way.
Craziest statistic ever for me with Mike Evans is the fact that the moment he entered the league, he's had like 1,000 yards the moment he stepped foot on NFL
with everybody. It does not matter.
Yeah.
Your grandma could go be his quarterback, and he's still going to get 1,000 yards. Like, bank it. Something to watch for. Rashad White's banged up. That might be significant. Bo Nix's college teammate, Bucky Irving, might be able to get a lot of burn. He's a guy I was very interested in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
A very electric guy. Get him in space, and he could do some serious work. I wonder what that's going to look like. But Rachaad White's been maybe not super efficient, but he's been effective for that offense. So that's something. And we haven't really seen Cade Otton get off. And yet we're, the tight end position continues to be a struggle for us. Freiermuth and Washington were able to have a little bit of success in certain spots against us. Cade Otton might not be a bad bet if you're looking for somebody to play in fantasy.
Yep.
Just because of that. Like, we're going to have our hands full. We're going to have to cover the whole field. And Baker Mayfield looks very elusive. He's very loose. He's having fun. Like, this is the Baker Mayfield I remember seeing like back at OU when he was he had the chip on his shoulder.
Now, why do you say that?
He had the team to go play ball with. Man, like, that was a fun Baker, and he looks just like that right now.
Baker Mayfield is probably, aside from Adrian Peterson, Baker Mayfield is probably Matty's favorite Sooner of all time, just for reference. But
AD and Baker, man, it's tough.
Followed up by Nick Bonito. I think the other thing that I'm watching is I think Vita Vea is out. Like,
I think so too.
I think Kalijah Cansey is also out from what I heard. The defensive line is still pretty solid, but they might the Broncos, if they were at least smart and use their 6 inches and use the brain.
Use 6 inches, nice.
I think that if they can commit to the running game, they might be able to get something going. But they would be very wise. They would be very wise to use the screen game to something we talked about earlier, like use the halfback screens, use some wide receiver screens, let's do some things to get Bo comfortable and, do it to where, Matty, this is something I think even you mentioned, and I mentioned even in the chat, which is the Parami Or chat that we have. And that is Bo Nix has been able, at least in preseason, was able to hit guys in stride so that they weren't even missing a beat, that they were just able to go. And that's been missing. So if you're trying to get things comfortable with him, progressing, a week by week basis, let's do some of those things. Let's hit some wide receivers in stride on some of those short passes, and maybe he can have those playmakers, get up to speed a little bit, quicker to the next level. So the front seven, for Tampa Bay is certainly one that I'm watching. The secondary is hit and miss now, especially with the loss of Antoine Winfield, who's not going to be, playing in the game either. So I think if you're Tampa Bay, this could be considered they got to be careful kind of games. Like, it's just like, I have Tampa Bay winning, just to be frank. Like, I have Tampa Bay winning. But, they need to be careful here.
Broncos traveling to the state of Florida in September. What's the worst that could happen?
Game too.
So today's Wednesday, right? As of Wednesday, practice reports come out. Vita Vea did not participate. Antoine Winfield did not participate. Jamel Dean, limited participant. Rachaad White, limited participant. We still have Logan Hall and Golston as questionable. Cansey is questionable. So defense taking a bit of a beating there.
Yeah, that's what Jaron said.
So a lot of injuries around the NFL. Like, in the offseason and the preseason, it felt like most teams were pretty clean.
Mm-hmm.
You wanna see a who's who in the zoo. Like, look at the Rams injury report.
Yeah, they already lost Cooper Kupp and Puka.
Oh my gosh! Like, what is going on? And big names too. Justin Jefferson's banged up. Obviously, everybody knows what happened with Tua. Like, league wide, there are some significant injuries that teams are dealing with. The Broncos, for the most part, knock on wood, have been fairly
okay. they kind of reared their ugly head early this week with Mike McGlinchey now on IR,
Did they?
but I bet, but I mean, like in the past, like if you look at it from last year, it's a bit more than than last year. But I mean, still though, I maybe to use it, it might be about the same as the league, if not maybe just a little bit less. But nonetheless,
Brandon Jones missed the practice today.
um,
Franklin Myers didn't practice. He's probably going to be out.
wide
Concussion. I don't know. He'll
wide
pass.
receiver one, Devon Bailey came back.
Limited today. Browning didn't practice. Reynolds Achilles limited. I think that's just rest for him.
They promoted Dondrea Tillman.
Okay.
Tillman
but-
looked really good in preseason.
So we'll see. We'll see there. Jones might be significant. Franklin Myers is going to be out, and I don't know how to feel about Browning, but the rest of that group, Cooper, Benito, Allen, those guys have been very solid so far in games. So yeah, we'll see. But McGlinchey was put on injured reserve.
He was.
With the knee.
And Alex Pofcheski will be taking his place. Not Matt Parrott, by the way, who when he took over for
what Pro Football Focus's darling.
Yeah. Who's not the Pro Football Focus's darling is Zach Allen. I don't know what Zach Allen did to Pro Football Focus, what he said about Pro Football Focus, but that man is like
he had to Billy Madison somebody there and just set a bag of poo on fire on somebody's doorstep because there's no way.
Yeah. All right. So tying a bow on this, obviously I'm sure you've got Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on this one.
I think the Bucs win probably like 24-13, maybe something in that range.
It's probably a safe bet. Yeah. Moving on to our next chapter of a conversation, we're going to be taking we are going to be moving on from talking about the Denver Broncos to something we are starting this year, and that is a fun conversation talking about college prospects and players who have kind of stood out in the last couple of weeks within the college football season. I will give I will say this. I talked about him last week as a budding freshman, and no, it's not the quarterback, for my school. I did not talk about him. But since Matty is here and since he's a fan of multiple teams, not just the Oklahoma Sooners, he is also a fan of the South Carolina Gamecocks. Matty, the floor is yours to talk about a certain budding freshman who might actually be the next Jadeveon Clowney with the Gamecocks.
Dude, yeah, I don't know maybe about Clowney. He might be the next Myles Garrett type of guy. Yeah, Dylan Stewart, man, that guy is a freak. He double, triple teams. It doesn't matter.
They got another dude on the other end, don't they? Like
that defense is solid. That defense is very solid. LSU freaking pulled it out. I guess you can't touch quarterbacks if they throw picks and throw a pick six. Like they're gonna find a way. If you touch the quarterback, they got the like horse collar thing. The dude was like around his goal line and threw a pick six there. They're like horse collar, and then he threw a pick 99-yard return to the house. He saw it and then was like, "I'm gonna go run and be a defender." And then the defender blocked him in his side, and they said blindside block. So the quarterback's not a defender at that point. Okay.
Take me through the emotions of that game. I gotta ask you,
dude. Okay, so
because that
watching
was
it, game day was there. Yeah. Okay, I don't know how much you guys are paying attention to college football this year. If college game day, we're coming. Right. So y'all City, and y'all City is going to lose because the home team has lost so far every week this year when college game days rolled in, and it kept up there. And oh, by the way, the Sooners are hosting this week. against the freaking Tennessee Volunteers. So that's going to be a lot of fun. The Gamecocks started as dominant as you can in the first quarter. I think LSU had something like 7 yards of offense in the first quarter. And then the second and third quarters, kind of the wheels fell off a little bit. LSU was able to make some things happen. Lenora Sellers, the quarterback for South Carolina, had a 75-yard touchdown run. And then on the next series, hurt his ankle. It looked like, man, that team, they were going to get it together. They were going to get a signature win, and that team was going to be on. Now, the schedule's brutal. Go look at the Gamecock schedule. It's awful. But that's the joy of playing in the SEC. That the emotions were all over the place there. And then the Tigers go get that touchdown late, and of course, things happen and the game ends, and the kicker misses the 49-yard field goal that could have put it into overtime. Man, but that place was rocking. Williams-Brice Stadium is one of the elite places in the country to watch a football game, especially when that team is good and competing. College game day, they deserve to host it, but man, like that, they let one slip, and that's going to be tough. I really hope that doesn't snowball into more losses for them.
And all during that time, Jackson Arnold threw a pick six to Tulane to bring it back within one score. Sorry, I had to.
Dude, Boomer Sooner born, sooner bred, and when I'm gone, I'll be sooner dead. But man, that game. Now look, we're gonna go against anybody. Yeah. We're the University of Oklahoma. Like, let's go, right? But man, Tennessee looks damn good.
Yeah.
They look like a college football playoff team. Obviously, they look like a potential if it was still four-team playoff.
They have a top quarterback, maybe not this year, but
next year he's going to be there. Yeah. Him and Arch are both going to be coming out next year. It's going to be very, very interesting after next season, right? Not this draft.
2026 for
Nico is a freaking stud. They've got a running back that has like 9 or 10 touchdowns on the season already too. It's just, my God, man. And that defense, they have like 12 defensive linemen, Tennessee does, that they could just rotate out. They basically do hockey shifts on their defensive line. You know what it reminds me of is that Giants defensive line that beat the Patriots the first year in the Super Bowl.
They just
being able to just rotate people in. Yeah. That's what Tennessee has. That Vols team is good, and they do not have a weakness. That team does not have a weakness. So I'm not super optimistic. 31-17 Vols is my prediction in Norman for this weekend.
Well, and it goes to what you're saying with college game day, in the home team. But, I think for me, one of the prospects that just is always going to be catching my eye are, the wide receiver position and just the young freshmen, the young freshmen that are just coming out of everywhere now with that wide receiver position. Ryan Williams from Alabama,
17.
Yeah. Like he's super young. I think what number is he, like 2 or something on Alabama?
Hey man, who are you voting for this cycle? Dog, I can't vote. I ain't even old enough to vote yet, man. Like,
yeah,
I'm old enough to torch anybody that's on the field with me, but man,
yeah, he looks
incredible.
He looks so good. And Jeremiah Smith, obviously with Ohio State, they just turn out everybody now. Like, like the whole wide receivers for Ohio State.
Brian Hartline is maybe the best position coach in college football.
Yeah. I'd be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to the other, freshmen, over there in these.
Dylan.
And no, I was just going to say in the city of Corn, and that would be Ja'Cory Barney.
Okay.
Ja'Cory Barney seems to be an excellent, freshman, prospect for the Skurs. Before, because I'm sure that's going to lead into once we talk about your guy, I feel like it's going to lead into the other 2 that we're going to end up having a conversation about.
Do you know which guy I'm going to talk about?
Why don't we lead off with you? Because Yeah.
Okay, so we mentioned the wide receiver position. It's not Luther Burden.
Who's an absolute dude too, by the way.
It's not Travis Hunter, who's a stud in his own right all game long. Tete Roa McMillan is the dude.
Or Tiramisu McMillan, depending on that.
Okay, so some similarities. Big body guy, right? Like think about him. Think about him running a million slants for Peyton. Like 6'5", 212. I think he's actually bigger than 212. I think he's probably going to be closer to like 218, 220. That dude is a freaking monster. He's fast AF for his size. The dude catches everything. He has like stickum and a magnet on his hands.
And he's got a pretty good quarterback too that is flying under the radar.
Fafita, and they played ball together forever since they were like sophomores or whatever.
Yeah.
And so McMillan could be running a drag. The ball could be thrown down at his knees, and he plucks it down at the last second, wasting no movement and no stride, and turns upfield. And then you have to have 2 or 3 guys to tackle him. He reminds me, with the ball in his hands, yard after catch, of Brandon Marshall.
It's funny because I was saying Brandon Marshall or Julio Jones. Like,
it's not quite as elite downfield that I've seen yet in contesting concerns like what Julio would be able to do. A lot of his plays, he's just been faster and bigger than the other person. So a little bit of Julio, but I need to see as we start like his next game's against Utah. He's gonna have to play physical downfield there. Against the University of New Mexico.
That's a good one too. Restrepo from Miami. Go, yeah.
10 catches, 304 yards, 4 touchdowns, and didn't even finish the game.
Kansas State's a really good defense, by the way, too.
At Kansas State, he had 11 catches for 138 yards.
Yeah.
Them knowing it was going to him all 11 catches.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, wow. That guy. Wow. He is a franchise-changing type of talent. And he's exactly... F it. McMillan down there somewhere. Bo Nix could say 3rd and 6. I'm throwing it his way, and we'll figure it out.
Well, and even then, like Luther Burden, another one. But he's in more of the, based on size comparison, he's more like up the Jamar Chases, like the 6 feet.
I was going to say like AJ Green for him.
Well, AJ Green was like 6'3" or something. Like he was in that kind of territory. But Jamar...
In his route tree, how he plays, like his down, like I see both great guys, both happen to be Bengals, but like Burden, incredible talent too.
But I feel like, for him, I kind of have like AJ Brown, Jamar Chase with Burden. He's also such a willing blocker. Like he's such a great blocker. And so I really like Burden. And it's early. We're entering the 4th game of the college football season. I will say this. Right now, the wide receiving class is what it should have been last year or this class in 2024 with guys like Keon Coleman and Marvin Harrison. And then Malik Neighbors just shot out of nowhere.
Brian Thomas Jr.
But like what it should have been in the sense of like guys who are like 1A, 1B, and 1C. But the problem with that Mr. 1C is he a corner or is he a wide receiver? So
doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. I personally think he's a better wide receiver, but I will say this right now. Travis Hunter, with the way that he is built, it is very impressive that he has the body control to do the things that he does up against a defensive back. And the fact that he actually plays defensive back only suits him just that much more. And I do think that there might be teams, I can't speak for teams, but I do think that there are teams who probably could use him, like on defense and offense. The thing there is you've got to load management him. You got to make sure that the snaps are good, that he's doing what he needs to, because there's no way he's going to be able to duplicate, especially with the speed of the NFL. He's not. I don't think he's going to be able to duplicate what he's been able to do in college, as impressive as it is. But he's elite at both, though.
I have a stance, and I know like it's only week 2 and we're talking about college prospects, but I have a stance about Hunter. Like, I think if people wanted to take him first overall, I wouldn't have heartburn. Here's why. What's the most important play on offense or defense? What down? Third down. High leverage situation, regardless of which side of the ball you're on. He could play every third down for you during the game. Maybe like not third and short type of thing. Like, obviously, like, situation matters. But I think a guy like Hunter, maybe he doesn't play every snap on offense. Maybe he doesn't play every snap on defense. Maybe he plays every single third down and every big second down for you, right? Maybe he's not a first down guy because, teams tend to let me get ahead of the sticks and da-da-da-da. Okay, you rotate him in. Or maybe you put him on the back end on defense and let him be a ball hawk. Like, you can move him all over the secondary and it's fine on defense. And then offense, you can move him inside or outside. You could put him in the backfield. Like, there are so many things you could do. You could have packages on offense, high leverage situations on defense, and play special teams. And the guy is like Champ Bailey meets Devin Hester meets, maybe Wes Welker with size and speed on third down for a team. Like, that guy wouldn't be worth $25-30 million on a second year.
But he certainly will be, just based on his value to your team.
Right. And so, like, people could talk about what is he? I don't know what he is. This isn't an Isaiah Simmons type of tweener dude. This is a guy who's elite at multiple positions, could potentially be a size matchup nightmare if in the right position.
On both sides of the ball, where Isaiah was,
And Isaiah was like, oh, he could be a good backer. He could be a safety. He could be a corner. Could even put him on the defensive line. The clubs have put him all over the place.
Yeah, we're defensively. We're talking offense too.
Right. Yeah. And so, it's a different thing.
Yeah. So it's going to be a fun thing to monitor. And some fun games.
A lot of fun games this week.
You got USC and Michigan, which it certainly lacks the luster of what it was going to be, heading into the season. Utah, Oklahoma State this weekend, to what Broncos and VA is mentioning.
Little game on Friday too.
There is a first time since 2016. First time since 2016 that the Nebraska Cornhuskers are ranked, and this is their last home game before playing Purdue. So it's going to be interesting. Dylan Raiola has proven to be what appears to be a guy. I mean, and Matty's familiar face over there with the offensive coordinator finally gets a quarterback. Marcus Satterfield. Yeah. So it's just, he's living the life now. It's like he's back, working with what he had with Spencer Rattler for a little bit. So,
since we're talking big games, we'll quick go through these. I'll do the ranked games here. Illinois, Nebraska minus 7.5. Which side do you like?
I think it's big. That's a really big thing.
Entertainment purposes only, not betting advice, not financial advice.
You didn't say it as fast as those live reads, Matty. But
gambling problem? Call 1-800 whatever it is. I don't know. I would never call it. I don't look at my DraftKings account.
Call it me being a Nebraska homer. I think Nebraska has another statement against Illinois. I actually think they win by 10.
Perfect. Nebraska by 10. Yeah. Nebraska by 10.
It's just the way that the defensive line is just. Who, by the way, for the Bronco fans that are in the chat, is actually coached by former defensive lineman pot roast Terrence Knighton at defensive line. Phenomenal defensive line coach for anybody that completely did not know about that. I had them by 10. What's some other games on the docket?
Cool. We'll go rapid fire. Southern Cal, not USC. The real USC plays on the East Coast. Southern Cal at Michigan. Southern Cal minus 5.5. Which side do you like?
I'm actually gonna go USC, and I actually think USC wins by multiple scores. Michigan's so bad right now.
You know what though? I'm taking Michigan at home. They're a proud team. They're defending champs. Southern Cal is not Texas.
No, they're not.
They are not Texas. I'm taking Michigan. Maybe not outright, but I'm certainly taking them getting 5.5 at home against
It's just
them.
been so disappointing. I'll just say that Michigan is.
Utah at Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State, according to this is Bet ESPN, this line must have moved 4.5 points today. Oklahoma State is 2.5 point favorites there. Which side do you like?
It's also the AARP Bowl, isn't it? With Alan Bowman and Cam Rising.
Yeah. They say this game's played at 3. I think that's so they could get dinner at halftime.
Yeah, I think that I'll probably go with Utah on this one.
The new class of the Big 12 is going to get a statement win in Stillwater. I agree, especially if they get 2.5 points. Bank that. Actually, I would put money on the money line if I were in a state that allowed me to gamble legally. 6 Tennessee at 15 Oklahoma. Which side do you like? Tennessee minus 7 right now.
You already made your call on, on that game. I've been really not impressed with Oklahoma the last couple weeks. They've won,
club, bro.
They've won, but they've won, but and Tulane is actually a sneaky good team for anybody that's not been following. So I think Tennessee wins personally.
Tennessee wins by more than 7.
That's what you said, right?
Yeah.
You said multiple scores.
I said 31-17 is my prediction. So the fact that it's 57.5 is insane to me.
Mm-hmm.
If they expect it to only be a Tennessee win by 7, I would take, if I was double dipping, I would take Tennessee minus 7 and the under. And then the last game I want to touch on, Kansas State, undefeated Wildcats at the BYU Cougars. Kansas State, 6.5 point favorites. K-State's number 13. BYU is undefeated here, but they are 6.5 point favorites or underdogs, at home against the Wildcats. Who do you like?
I'm going Kansas State. I think that they're the way I said it, and obviously, you're no longer with the Big 12. You're now with the SEC now with being Oklahoma.
It just means more. It just means more.
I always felt like there was one team in the Big 12 that if you were to just take them out of the Big 12 and put them in the Big 10, it would be a very easy transition for them based on how they play stylistically, how tough they are, the head coach, everything. That's Kansas State. Kansas State is basically a Big 10 football team. They're hard-nosed, very well coached. I think Kansas State is a very sneaky playoff team this year. I don't know if they get in, but I that's just my praise a little bit right then and there for Kansas State over BYU and them as a program.
I mean, yeah, but BYU is undefeated. They're at home. That's a tough place to go play. A beautiful place to go play, apparently. I haven't been there in person. K-State's legit. They just manhandled Arizona like 31-7. That was not even
despite Teratoa, doing what he did.
Right. I think 6.5 is a little rich for me. especially if that touches 7, I would hammer BYU. But yeah, that seems like too many points for BYU right now. So I would take BYU side. So that'll be very interesting to see what happens and see the playback and see people call me out next week when obviously all of my picks are wrong and all of Cam's are right. So
that's right.
Jack, your question real quick. I take quarterback number 2, even though the 2 touchdowns are less than 3, the 533 yards, and I don't, obviously context matters, but putting it here, if you're moving the ball down the field, you're putting other people probably in position to score. And the 3 interceptions, I think interceptions are potentially more detrimental for your team than the touchdowns are success for your team. Just look at what happened with Jameis Winston throwing 30 and going 30 for 30. The ESPN special that season he had. So I would probably take the guy, the quarterback too. Interested to see what that is, and I'm probably going to go look it up after.
Yeah,
but.
Jack is a good dude. He does the show with Rich A over for the Wild Wild West show. Raider fan, but yeah, we're really good dude. I probably would go with the same route as you, Matty. I still feel like context would matter on something like that. And I think that the one more turnover, kind of brings it down even too. Like you have the 3 touchdowns, but you also have the 3 interceptions. And yeah, it's about even. 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, but the less turnover means more also. And the other part of it too with context is, well, the moment of when those turnovers happened. If you're driving down into the red zone, and those were interceptions, into the red zone.
And we don't have rushing yards, like we don't have rushing context there, but yeah.
And also, I think it's very. Rich A was so you weren't here, Matty. Rich A was saying the Broncos should not start Bo Nix to begin the season. I think that right now, if we're going to be using the lens of right now, it looks like it was the smart decision that they probably should have started Stidham or started Zach for the first beginning part of the season. But when you look at the course of what was transpiring in OTAs, in training camp, Bo was pulling ahead. Bo was pulling ahead of Stidham, and he was pulling ahead of Zach Wilson. So you still have to keep things in perspective of where things were with OTAs and with minicamp and everything that there was leading, and especially Sean Payton just praise after praise after praise, for Bo. So I don't think there was ever going to be a moment where Stidham or Zach Wilson were going to be starting week 1.
Especially not if the team wanted him to be captain, right? Like the rookie comes in, obviously he had enough support to be named captain. They liked what he did on the field. You don't get to be named captain unless you do good things off the field too. They liked the kid. They supported the kid. You can't make a guy captain like that in that position and then put him on the bench. Like he's got to be on the field. He's got to be leading the team. Captain leads. And so, but they certainly weren't going to make Stidham that guy, right? Like whatever you like about Stidham, and I don't think he's a bad quarterback. I think he's got a lot of redeemable qualities as a quarterback. I think he's got a place in this league. I don't think he's team captain worthy.
Cue up the quote from preseason. Anyway, I'll just leave it at that. Thank you guys so much for hopping in, for another episode of the Manely Broncos podcast. It was great having Matty back with us. You could say he brought the fireworks, ladies and gentlemen. So it was good to have Matty back. Make sure you hit him over there on the X and social media platform at Matty Mulls Pod. It was great. We will hopefully be talking about a Broncos victory against the Buccaneers. If not, it might end up being the same old story for a podcast next week. But nonetheless, it was great. We love the feedback. Thank you to everybody that chimed into the chat. Some of the new guys that I actually hadn't seen before. Jaron, good to see Broncos and VA over here. Really good questions from Jaron too. I saw Graham in here. Been a while since I've been talking with Graham. JC Weaver with the good Riley Moss question. Clayton, as always, one of our big super fans. Always good to see you in the house. Like always, man, it's so good to have you guys be a part of the Manly Broncos podcast, because you not only, we could certainly talk about the Broncos for, many, many weeks, but you guys help bring out this podcast just a little bit more with your comments and questions and concerns, if you will, in that comment section. So you guys really matter as much to this podcast as much as we do, and the network, of course. So thank you guys so much. Again, make sure you follow Matty at Matty Mulls Pod, myself at Caden Parker PO, and the guy who chose not to be here tonight, Brandon Miller PO, at Brandon Miller PO, or Brandon Miller Poo, whichever one. Don't spell poo because it's PO. At Brandon Miller PO. Again, it was a pleasure. We'll see you guys next week.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simpo's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast's racking up the flight miles. So high, I might never come